Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here again to sift through the sources, the noise, and really get to the heart of things.
That's the plan.
And today, we are doing an exhaustive analysis, a real deep dive into someone whose life was cut short, way too short, but whose voice just seems to get louder over time. William Melvin Hicks.
Yeah, Bill Hicks. And it's important, like you said, not to just label him a comic. I mean, he was a stand-up, obviously, but also a satirist, musician.
Just a philosopher, some would argue.
Yes.
Definitely provocative.
Absolutely. He lived from 61 to 94, died at just 32. But his work, wow, it really became this touchstone for counterculture thinking, especially after he was gone.
So our mission today for you listening is to really unpack that. Go beyond the angry comic label. We need to look at the controversial stuff, the surprising spiritual side, the censorship moments.
Right, and that powerful legacy that landed him, number 4 on Channel 4's big list of comics, number 13 on Rolling Stones. That doesn't just happen.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's nail down his identity, because you need to understand his tools, right? His comedy wasn't just telling jokes.
Not at all. It was like ideological combat sometimes.
Yeah. Dark comedy, political satire, observational stuff. But weaponized. What was he aiming at?
Everything, pretty much. Mainstream American culture, politics, religion. Big target there. Consumerism, how we talk about drugs, conspiracy theories.
He wasn't just after a chuckle. He seemed to want to, detonate the whole accepted narrative, force you, the listener, to question what you thought was real.
And what's really striking is how early that started. That rebellious streak, the iconoclasm. Born in Valdosta, Georgia, moved around, ended up in Houston when he was 7.
And right away, he's into comedy.
Yeah, obsessed. Writing routines with his friend Dwight Slade, trying to be like his heroes, Woody Allen, Richard Pryor, big influences.
And that impulse, that need to question, immediately puts him on a collision course with his family's beliefs, right? Southern Baptist.
Oh, yeah, big time. This wasn't just typical teenage stuff. It was a fundamental clash of worldviews, and it really, it fed his material his entire career.
The sources give us some great examples of that tension, don't they?
They really do. Like how he later kind of jokingly called his family yuppie Baptists to the Houston Post.
Right, joking. Their big concerns were like, should you leave a note if you scratch your neighbor's Subaru?
Exactly. It just skewers that, superficial middle-class religiosity he saw. But the real deep conflict, Cynthia True writes about this in her biography.
His father, the Bible.
Yeah, an argument where his dad insists the Bible is the literal word of God. And Hicks fires back with what basically became his lifelong stance. No, it's not, Dad. Beliefs are neat. Cherish them, but don't share them like they're the truth.
Wow. That distinction is key, isn't it? Between your personal belief and pushing it as the capital T truth. Explains so much of his later attacks on organized religion.
Totally. But, and this is crucial, it wasn't necessarily an attack on spirituality itself. He seemed to be looking for something more genuine than just dogma.
Which you see signs of early on, too, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't just rebelling against something.
Exactly. He was curious. His friend Kevin Slade got him into Transcendental Meditation, TM. And he didn't just dabble. He took a full TM residence course in Galveston one Thanksgiving. He was searching.
Trying to find some kind of vision, maybe, beyond just buying stuff and going to church.
I think so. Something authentic.
So you've got this teenager, full of intellectual fire, hating societal norms. Must have been fun for his parents.
Huh. Yeah, they were worried, understandably. There's that great story from when he was 17. They drag him off to a psychoanalyst.
Yeah.
And Hicks loved telling this. After the first group session, the analyst pulls him aside and basically says, look, you can keep coming if you want, but it's them, not you.
Oh, my God. That's like the ultimate validation for a kid like that. Confirmation he's the sane one in an insane world.
Pretty much. And you can imagine that just pouring fuel on his stand-up fire. He had already started performing at 16 at the Comedy Workshop in Houston, still in high school, then University of Houston for a bit.
And that Houston scene had a specific vibe, didn't it?
It did. He fell in with the Texas Outlaw comics.
Right. What was their deal?
Basically, a group of comics who shared this aggressive, no-compromise, anti-establishment approach. They saw themselves as boundary pushers, rejecting the safer mainstream clubs. Being an outlaw was part of the identity, the performance.
But being an outlaw doesn't always pay the bills, especially back then. The mid-'80s sound like a tough period.
Yeah, the sources say by 86 he was really struggling financially and using a lot of recreational drugs pretty heavily, burning out a bit.
But then 87 hits. Things start looking up.
Big time. That was the year he got on Rodney Dangerfield's Young Comedian special. Huge exposure.
That was a big deal back then.
Massive. And critically, that same year, he makes the move, New York City.
And that just shifts everything into high gear.
Totally. For the next 5 years, he's basically living on stage, performing something like 300 times a year, just relentless.
And the whole substance use thing becomes part of the act itself.
Yeah.
But it changes over time.
It does. You hear it evolve. There's that famous bit from Relentless about quitting drugs because, what was the line?
Once you've been taken aboard a UFO, it's kind of hard to top that. Classic Hicks.
Perfect. But it's important to differentiate. He quit drinking alcohol completely in '88. He talks about it on the Dangerous album. Said it dulled the mind.
But other stuff.
Other stuff, yeah. He kept praising LSD, marijuana, psychedelic mushrooms, not just for kicks, but as tools. Tools for insight, for breaking down consensus reality as he saw it.
So ditching the destructive stuff for the mind-expanding stuff. But one thing stayed constant, became almost iconic visually.
The chain smoking. Yeah.
Yeah.
The cigarette was always there, became part of the persona, didn't it? The weary prophet, always lighting the next one.
A lifelong habit. Adds a real layer of tragedy looking back. Okay, so that sets the stage. Let's pivot now. From the backstory to the actual act. The style, the philosophy, that relentless challenging of the audience.
Yeah, his style was something else for the time. He wasn't trying to make the audience comfortable at all.
Quite the opposite sometimes.
Right. He'd deliberately play on their emotions, anger, disgust, apathy, but somehow try to channel it, make it cathartic. But he did it with this weirdly casual, intimate manner, like he was just talking to friends, sharing some awful truth.
Using the stage as a platform, not just for punchlines.
Exactly. Challenging authority, questioning everything. His core message really was an invitation. Reject the default settings, question what everyone tells you is truth.
But bringing deep thoughts to a comedy club
Yeah.
probably didn't always go over smoothly.
Haha. Understatement. There's that famous story he told on the BBC show Funny Business in '92. Some audience member yells out, "We don't come to comedy to think."
And Hicks's reply.
Pure Hicks exasperation. Gee, where do you go to think? I'll meet you there. When did thinking not become entertaining? That nails his whole philosophy. He thought just giving people easy laughs was condescending.
He definitely wasn't worried about offending. And he had a particular dislike for political correctness, didn't he?
Oh, he hated it. Saw it as another form of thought control, stifling real conversation.
Right.
Made that joke about how the politically correct should be hunted down and killed. Obviously satire, but intense.
He just saw it as another set of rules getting in the way of raw truth, I guess. Especially in the early 90s culture wars.
Yeah, another layer of censorship, basically. And for him, anything that blocked truth was the enemy.
Let's get deeper into the really philosophical stuff, the psychedelic material. This is what really set him apart, made him this counterculture figure.
This is where he took these really complex, kind of fringe ideas and dragged them onto the comedy stage. That famous routine about the psychedelic epiphany, it's brilliant.
The news report one.
Yeah. He delivers this profound realization, the whole all matter is energy, we're all one consciousness thing you might get from psychedelics.
Life is only a dream, and we're the imagination of ourselves.
Right. But he delivers it in the deadpan, completely detached voice of a local news anchor.
Here's Tom with the weather.
Exactly. It's genius because it mocks the media's total inability to grasp or report anything genuinely profound or, countercultural.
And that depth wasn't just pulled out of thin air. He was reading people like Terence McKenna, right?
Oh, yeah, heavily influenced by McKenna, the philosopher, the ethnomycologist, guy who studied psychoactive mushrooms and culture.
Ethnomycologist.
Yeah.
Okay, what specific McKenna ideas did Hicks use?
He got really into McKenna's stuff. In his later shows, he'd even act out a version of the stoned ape theory.
The stoned ape. Explain that.
Okay, so McKenna's theory, basically, is that early humans eating psychedelic mushrooms was the catalyst. That it kickstarted our cognitive evolution, self-awareness, language, art, religion. A huge leap forward triggered by fungi.
Wow. Okay, and Hicks saw that as
the ultimate satirical weapon against creationism and dull, institutionalized religion. It fit his worldview perfectly. Nature providing the spark, not some dusty book.
that willingness to embrace really provocative ideas also led to some darker moments, though. That infamous heckler incident in Chicago. 89, was it?
Yeah, the Hitler outburst. It's on the bootleg. I'm sorry, folks. It's pretty chilling, actually.
What happened?
Some guy just kept shouting, "Free bird!" relentlessly during his set, trying to derail him. And Hicks just snapped, screamed back, "Hitler had the right idea. He was just an underachiever."
Whoa.
Yeah. And he didn't stop there. He went off on this intense misanthropic rant about human stupidity, calling for Well, basically calling for wiping the slate clean. It was shocking, but it showed the depth of his frustration with the idiocy he felt surrounded by.
And beyond just general anger at stupidity, he consistently targeted authority. Conspiracy theories became a big part of his act.
Absolutely. Not always saying this is the absolute truth, but using them to show how broken our trust in official stories was.
Like the JFK assassination stuff.
Yeah, spent a lot of time mocking the Warren Report, the whole Lee Harvey Oswald lone nut narrative. The humor came from pointing out the logical gaps, saying basically if you just accept the official story without question, you're being intellectually lazy.
And he applied that same skepticism to current events too, right? Like Waco.
Mm-hmm. During the Waco siege in '93, he questioned the official portrayal of David Koresh, always framing the government's version as suspect, potentially manipulative. Question everything.
And that theme, the truth teller being silenced, he even acted it out sometimes.
Yeah, literally. Closing some shows, including ones recorded for albums, with a mock assassination. He'd make gunshot sounds into the mic, collapse on stage, playing the martyr for truth.
Heavy stuff.
You, sir.
Which leads us right into his peak fame, that international acclaim and the big censorship moment that really solidified that tragic prophet image in the U.S.
Right. The early 90s were incredibly productive. Sane Man video in '89, Dangerous album in '90, HBO's One Night Stand. He was building momentum in the States.
But overseas, different story.
Oh, yeah. He exploded in the UK and Ireland. He was filling big venues on his '91 tour there, recorded Revelations for Channel 4 in '92. They just seemed to get his whole cynical, spiritual, angry thing much faster than American audiences did.
Why do you think that was?
Maybe a longer tradition of satire, less reverence for mainstream optimism. Hard to say, but they clearly connected with the philosophical anger. And it was in the UK he recorded that famous closing bit.
It's just a ride.
Just a ride, yeah.
So,
Such a perfect distillation of his worldview. Relax, don't worry, it's all temporary cosmic theater. Great antidote to fear.
okay, let's talk about a huge crossover moment for him. His connection with the band Tool. That was significant.
Hugely significant. It took him from being a sort of cult comic figure to being embraced by the alternative rock world. Tool saw a kindred spirit,
Yeah.
anti-establishment complex ideas.
And they invited him on tour.
Yeah, to open for them during their Lollapalooza dates in '93. And the connection was real. Remember that story?
The contact lens.
Yeah. He tells the massive crowd he lost a contact lens, asks them to look for it. And thousands of people actually get down on their hands and knees in the dirt. That's rapport. That's command.
Incredible. And Tool's dedication of Anima to him in '96 after he died, calling him another dead hero. That album was huge.
Triple platinum, huge. And the dedication wasn't just a name in the liner notes. Hicks's ideas are baked into that album.
How so?
Well, the chorus of the title track, Anima, that whole idea of LA falling into the ocean, that comes directly from Hicks's Arizona Bay routine.
Where he fantasizes about California sinking.
Exactly, washing away all the superficiality. The album's packaging, that weird shifting cover art, also references it. He literally gave them the central concept for one of their biggest songs.
Amazing.
And even more directly, the last track on the album, Third Eye, it actually samples Hicks's voice, takes bits from his Dangerous and Relentless albums. He's literally part of the fabric of that record, cemented in rock history.
Wow. Okay, let's shift to the incident that, maybe more than anything, cemented his reputation in America as this sort of silenced truth teller, the Letterman censorship. But the story starts earlier than '93, doesn't it?
It does. There was a precedent. Back in 1984, his very first time booked on Letterman's NBC show, Late Night, NBC had this policy against jokes about handicapped people.
And Hicks had a routine.
Yeah, about causing an accident where a classmate ended up in a wheelchair. He talked later about how the network made him jump through hoops, avoiding specific words like wheelchair. It made the routine almost impossible to do, showed him early how sensitive the powers that be could be.
But the big one, the infamous one, was October 1st, 1993, his 12th appearance on a Letterman show, now on CBS. And they just cut him entirely.
Yep, taped the whole set, 5 minutes long, and then just completely axed it from the broadcast, which was incredibly rare for an established comedian.
What was the material they objected to?
Jokes about religion, specifically targeting the anti-abortion movement. You can trace it right back to that lifelong conflict we talked about, railing against people forcing their beliefs on others.
Who made the call?
Well, Hicks said the producers told him it was just unsuitable for network TV. The producer, Robert Morton, kind of tried to blame CBS standards at first, but eventually admitted he made the final decision.
And Hicks never went back on the show.
Never again, which is just heartbreaking when you know the context.
The context being?
Unbeknownst to Letterman, to the audience, probably to Morton, Hicks was undergoing weekly chemo for pancreatic cancer when he taped that set. He was literally dying.
Oh, man. Fighting for his life and fighting to get his jokes on air. He died just over 4 months later.
Ah, brutal.
But the story has this really incredible postscript years later.
It does.
It does.
January 30th, 2009, 14 years after Hicks died, Letterman brings Hicks' mother, Mary, onto The Late Show.
As a guest.
As a guest. And he plays the entire censored routine from 1993. The whole thing. And Letterman gives this very direct, very personal apology. He said, and this is a quote, "It says more about me as a guy than it says about Bill because there was absolutely nothing wrong with that."
That's huge. A major public mea culpa.
And massive. It was this huge institutional validation, years too late, but still powerful, saying, yeah, the comic was right, the censors were wrong.
Before we get to his final days, we have to touch on a really painful conflict from his last year. The whole Denis Leary thing.
Oh, yeah. The plagiarism accusation. This wasn't just professional rivalry. It was the bitter end of a friendship in '93.
Hicks was furious, right? About Leary's album, No Cure for Cancer.
Absolutely livid. Because Leary's whole persona on that album, the chain-smoking, angry, ranting comic in specific lines, specific bits, felt incredibly similar to what Hicks had already been doing for years.
His biographer, Cynthia True, put it bluntly, said Leary had practically taken line for line huge chunks of Bill's act and recorded it. That's a heavy accusation.
It is. And people point to specific examples like the structure of the Jim Fixx joke. Fixx was the running guru who died jogging.
Right, and Hicks used it to mock the health craze, comparing him to Keith Richards surviving everything.
Exactly. And Leary had a bit with a very, very similar setup and punchline, hitting that same irony. Hicks saw it as outright theft.
And Hicks, being Hicks, hit back with satire.
Dark, personal satire. When someone asked him why he'd quit smoking, he reportedly deadpanned, "I just wanted to see if Dennis would, too."
I don't get it.
And his ultimate sarcastic take was the mock confession. "I stole Leary's act. I camouflaged it with punchlines, and to really throw people off, I did it before he did, just dripping with bitterness."
That tension lingered for years, too, didn't it? Even after Hicks was gone.
Yeah, apparently there was a joke written for Leary's Comedy Central roast in 2003 from Lenny Clark. Something about getting Leary a carton of cigarettes from Hicks with a note saying, "Wish I had gotten these to you sooner," but they cut the joke from the broadcast. Still too raw, I guess.
It's important, though, especially when someone becomes almost mythic, like Hicks, to bring in some balance. Not everyone saw him as flawless. Right.
Absolutely. We have to avoid the hagiography, treating him like a saint. There were and are valid criticisms of his work.
From other comedians, too.
Yeah. Jimmy Carr, for instance, wrote that Hicks sometimes missed his mark, that some of the philosophical stuff ended up neither funny nor moving, suggesting it didn't always connect.
Stuart Lee had critiques, too.
Lee argued that Hicks's first two albums have dated badly, calling some of it adolescent pot shots at inoffensive figures, basically saying some of the early targets were maybe too easy or haven't aged well.
And Dara O'Brien made an interesting point about the whole angry comedy thing.
Yeah, O'Brien specifically criticized the hagiography that surrounds Bill Hicks, arguing he became this sort of cliche, a poster boy for angry comedy, maybe overshadowing other styles. It makes you ask, are people celebrating the anger itself or the actual comedic genius behind the anger? It's a fair question.
Interesting points. But regardless of those critiques, his final year, knowing what we know now, it's just a story of incredible artistic will.
Absolutely. June 16th, 1993, he gets the devastating diagnosis, pancreatic cancer, already spread to his liver.
And he tells almost no one.
Keeps it incredibly quiet, just close friends, family, and he keeps working, touring, doing chemo every week, recording the Arizona Bay album, pouring it all out.
He was literally joking on stage about this might be my last show without anyone knowing it was possibly true.
Yeah. His last public performance was at Caroline's Comedy Club in New York, January 6, 1994.
Then he went home.
Back to his parents' place in Little Rock, Arkansas. The sources mention this really poignant detail. He spent his last weeks just rereading Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings.
Wow. He stopped speaking around Valentine's Day, February 14th, and died February 26, 1994. 32 years old.
But he left something behind, a final essay written just weeks before he died, February 7th. And it really lays out his final thoughts, his vision.
What did it say?
He talked about all his creative outlets, writing, acting, music, comedy, and said, "This is the coin of the realm I use in my words, vision." He framed everything he did, even the harshest satire, as trying to share a vision for something better. A new hope and new happiness.
Connecting the cynicism directly to hope. That's powerful.
And the ending. It's beautiful, especially from someone who battled so much with organized religion. He wrote, "I left in love, in laughter, and in truth, and wherever truth, love, and laughter abide, I am there in spirit." It's just this perfect, almost transcendent sign-off.
And his death, ironically, just made his voice even louder, didn't it? Those posthumous albums, Arizona Bay, Rant in E minor in 97, they became essential listening.
Solidified the cult status, definitely. Packaged that final, raw energy. And like we mentioned with Tool, his words just started appearing everywhere, sampled by bands like Super Furry Animals, Adam Freeland, Fila Brasilia, integrated into the soundscape.
And the Radiohead dedication for the Bends in 95. Huge album.
Huge. And the influence on comedians is undeniable. You hear his name constantly from people like Louis Black, Joe Rogan, Patton Oswalt, Russell Brand, David Cross. A whole generation cites him.
His influence even reached, bizarrely, the UK Parliament.
Yeah. In 2004, a British MP named Stephen Pound tabled this thing called an early day motion. It's like a formal proposal for debate. And this motion, EDM 678, specifically quoted Hicks, saying his words would be, "A bullet in the heart of consumerism, capitalism, and the American dream."
Seriously.
Seriously. And it compared him directly to Lenny Bruce. That's pretty incredible recognition from a political body.
And Hollywood keeps trying to tell his story.
Always. There was that failed pilot for a talk show he co-created, Counts of the Netherworld. The documentary in 2010, American, the Bill Hicks story, brought his life to many more people.
And the biopics that keep getting announced.
Right. Russell Crowe was attached to direct one back in 2012. Then in 2018, Richard Linklater, who seems like a perfect fit, actually was announced as directing one for Focus Features. That one's apparently still in development as of late 2024. It just shows his story resonates as more than just a comedian's life. It's seen as important cultural history.
So, wrapping this all up, what's the takeaway for us today? We've looked at this guy who was just full of contradictions, right? The dark cynic searching for spiritual truth, the misanthrope wanting unity, the comic demanding you think.
He really did bridge that gap between a rock and roll attitude and deep philosophical questions. Always pushing back against authority, demanding authenticity.
And his power seems to lie in that absolute refusal to compromise, even if it meant getting censored, even if it felt like martyrdom sometimes. That final thought for you listening, remember that line from the movie Human Traffic?
Oh, yeah. The protagonist says he needs a daily injection of the late prophet Bill Hicks, just to remind me not to take life too seriously.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What is it about an artist whose voice becomes more influential, more prophetic after they're gone? And what does it say about us, about our culture, that the things Hicks was shouting about 30 years ago are still so relevant, still being sampled, argued over, even feared today?
Makes you wonder how much louder that voice, that vision for truth, would be if he had had more time, if he were still here holding the mic.
A powerful question indeed, about truth, vision, and what lasts. Thanks for diving deep with us today.